Hello and welcome to the OTB channel. Now yesterday Ubuntu released its new long-term support edition and all the associated flavours. And whatever you think of Ubuntu, it has built up a reputation for being solid, dependable and user-friendly. So I'm going to look at the latest edition of Ubuntu Mate to see what it brings to the party. I'll join you after the intro. Okay, welcome back. As you can see, I'm decked out in my Ubuntu t-shirt and my Ubuntu hat, which I've had to dig out. Took me a while to find that one. Okay, so Ubuntu Mate, why am I looking at Ubuntu? You all know that I'm an Arch and Debian user, so why Ubuntu? Well, myself and Ubuntu go back a long way. The first edition of Ubuntu, the Warty Warthog, was in October 2004, and I started using Linux myself in 2004, around the summer of 2004. And if it hadn't have been for the release of the Warty Warthog in the October, I very much doubt that I would have stayed a Linux user. I'd tried Xandros, Mandrake, OpenSUSE, or SUSE as it just was then, and none of it would work properly on my desktop, and I was getting quite frustrated. Then along comes this brown distro, and I installed it and I was amazed. It actually did things like mount a USB stick automatically if you inserted it. Sounds nothing these days, but believe me, back in 2004, Linux was not really desktop ready. You had to know what you were doing if you were going to run a Linux desktop. So I will always associate Ubuntu with making the Linux desktop usable. And as far as I'm concerned, they did that pretty much single-handedly right from the word go. These days, Ubuntu seems to have become a little bit of a dirty word in some places, perhaps exactly because it's so user-friendly, and it has imposed some changes on users which haven't necessarily been that popular. I mean, we started off with the GNOME 2 desktop, which I really enjoyed. Then GNOME went to GNOME 3, and Ubuntu abandoned that and went to Unity, which took a bit of getting used to, but I did get used to it. And the main version has now gone back to GNOME. Okay, so whilst it's been going through those transitions, I've swapped and changed, and I've settled really on Arch Linux. And I use Arch Linux for a number of reasons. I like the rolling release nature of it. I love the AUR. I like Pac-Man. None of that, though, takes away the fact that Ubuntu and the Ubuntu derivatives are a great distro. And I think most of us as desktop users owe Ubuntu a lot for making it suitable for human beings. In fact, that used to be its tagline, Linux for human beings. And I think it's correct. I've gone through all the way from 2004 where there has never been a period where Ubuntu has not been installed on my desktop. I don't always go into it, but I've got Ubuntu Mate, the last version, installed on a partition on my desktop at the moment, and I will be upgrading it to the LTS. So I thought it's an appropriate time to go and have a look at what the new version 2004 actually brings to the table. Right, let's go to the split screen. You may ask, why am I looking at Ubuntu Mate and not the main version of Ubuntu based on GNOME? Well, it's because I enjoyed the GNOME 2 desktop. I found it to be the most comfortable to work with. I've never really been a fan of the GNOME desktop. Nothing wrong with it, it's just a personal preference. And to my mind, Ubuntu Mate has sort of picked up where GNOME 2 left off. And it's a great desktop and it's a great implementation of Mate. So what's actually changed? Well, there's a load of things changed. We've got game mode, experimental ZFS, multicolored themes, high DPI displays, tweaker. They fixed the irregular icon sizes. They fixed unresponsive hardware. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that. Extensions. They've changed the power manager. They've done a whole range of things, and they've added a firmware updater, and there are even things like new key bindings added. Now, I will leave a link to this release notes page by Martin Wimpress and Frank SMCB. Okay, Martin Wimpress I am very familiar with, and you can download it direct from this page. But for now, let's go in, let's do a full install, and let's have a look at the distribution. Right, so here we are. What you should see in front of you now is the Ubuntu Mate 20.04 ISO screen. You get the option when you first boot Ubuntu just to do a straightforward install or to try it first. So I've selected the try before you buy option, and that reconfigures itself and boots you into a desktop where we get this welcome screen. I'm going to close that for now. I wouldn't normally go through the install procedure on something like Ubuntu because for existing Linux users, most of us have done this many times before. But I appreciate that many people trying this long-term support release of Ubuntu this time might not have done the install before. So we'll quickly run through it, and it's pretty straightforward. You'll find an icon on the desktop, install Ubuntu Mate. Just double-click on that and wait for it to launch, and this will take us through the whole process. So English, brilliant. I'll just click on continue. That'll ask me to confirm my keyboard. I'm in the UK, so that's all that needs to be done. And it asks what I want. Do I want a normal installation or a minimal? Well, I want a normal installation. And I get the option here to download updates while installing Ubuntu Mate. And if you're online, that's what I would do. To make your experience a little bit easier, I would also click the install third-party software for graphics and Wi-Fi hardware and additional media formats. It will save you needing to do that once you've booted into the system. Just click continue. And don't worry if it seems to take a while to actually set itself up and move on to the next screen. That's absolutely normal. So it then asks you what you want to do. And the first option is erase disk and install Ubuntu Mate. Now, if you're installing this alongside Windows, there will be an additional option here that will give you the option to install Ubuntu alongside Windows. And the installation will automatically set up a dual boot system and give you a couple of options for how big you want your Windows partition to be and how big you want your Linux partition to be. I'm just going to go for erase disk and install Ubuntu Mate. So I'm going to hit the install now button. It tells me what it's going to do, and I just click continue. It asks me where I am, and I'm in the UK, and it's correctly identified my time zone. Again, I'm clicking next. It now asks me to insert my name. Now, I'm just going to put in OTB here as my name, and it asks me to choose a password and to enter that twice. You get some options here to log in automatically, but I always prefer to require the password on logon. It's more secure. And click continue. And the installation process starts. It really is a next process. So I'll speed this up and we'll come back once it's complete. Right, so it's now 12:29. I think we started at 12:21. So it's taken about 8 minutes, which is pretty fast by anybody's standard. So that's it complete, the installation. What I'll do is I'll pause this here, I'll reboot the system, and we'll come back once it's up and running. Right, so I've booted back into Ubuntu Mate. Now the installation is finished. And I'm greeted by this welcome screen, which asks me, would I like to send this information telemetry to Ubuntu or not? Well, let's have a look what data it's going to send. And I can actually see there it's just sending simple hardware information, so I haven't got a problem with that. And the fact that I was asked, do I want to do it or not, is always a bonus as far as I'm concerned. So let's just continue. And I really like these welcome screens because they give you a quick overview of what you need to do. So here's the introduction. So scroll down to learn more. And it tells us a little bit about what is Ubuntu, what is open source, etc., etc. Features. So what have we got? Pre-configured yet flexible, and I'd agree with that. Ultimately, it doesn't matter what Linux distro you download and install. You can customize it however you want, and that's certainly the case with Ubuntu. Built-in security, yeah, absolutely. So ongoing updates, and there is a firewall installed right from the word go. Ubuntu Mate can get viruses and other infections, but it doesn't. And there's a little bit of information here about exactly what that means. What else have we got? Another significant security feature. So it talks a little bit about the root user and the standard user. And then it goes through bits and pieces about what the essential onboard apps and utilities are right from the start. There's a link to the community. I presume that might be the forums. Yeah, exactly, the Ubuntu Mate community. A chat room, a link to the software store, get involved. I'm not sure what that is. It's opening in a web browser, and I presume, right, yeah, it's talking about all the things that you might like to involve yourself in to help out the distribution. As you can see, Firefox is installed by default. Browser selection. So what do you want to use? Firefox is installed by default, but if, for instance, I wanted to install Chromium, Vivaldi, or even Brave, that's fine. I just click on the install, and it should do it automatically. I'm assuming it will probably ask for my password in a minute, but it's downloading the Brave browser now. And if you want to see details of what it's doing, let's have a look at the details. So you can see it's downloading there, and very shortly that'll be installed. Now, while it's getting on doing that, let's have a quick look in the menu to see what's installed by default. So if we go to accessories, you can see there's just a sensible software selection here. The Planck dock is installed should you want it. Pluma, which is a text editor. You've got Redshift, which is good. It's easy on the eyes for different lighting conditions. A screenshot tool, and overall an Ubuntu Mate guide. Let's see what that's all about. I'm presuming this is going to take us to a web page, but I may well be wrong. No, it doesn't look like a web page actually. It just looks like an on-system guide. So let's have a look at the Mate desktop. Okay, so it's a reference help system, which is always useful. What else have we got? So that was accessories. In admin, we have something called the Software Boutique, and we also have a software updater, a link to the welcome screen, and yeah, your printer dialog. In education, there's nothing installed at the moment. In graphics, well, you've got a scanner, Eye of Mate image viewer, a colour selection tool and Shotwell for your photographs. There's the Brave browser. It's now been installed along with Firefox, and I've got transmission as a BitTorrent client. So if I click on Brave browser, it should just open, and there you go. So I'm going to shut down that welcome screen now. Office, you've got the LibreOffice suite there, plus the Trill document viewer. So that's for opening your PDF files. You've got preferences, so additional drivers should you need them, for especially if you've got third-party or hardware on board that needs third-party drivers. I'm in VirtualBox, so that's not actually going to do a huge amount. Advanced network configuration, appearance. In fact, a whole range of settings that you'll find in the control center, which we'll come to in a second. What about sound and video? You've got celluloid for playing videos, Cheese, which is for your webcam, and Rhythmbox for music. And then in system tools, you have firmware. Now, this is really interesting, and I've not seen this before. I don't think it's going to work on VirtualBox. But if you are running a laptop or a desktop that is signed up to LVFS, the Linux Vendor Firmware Service. So you've got most of the big companies like Dell and Lenovo who sign up to this. If they upload firmware to LVFS, this tool will allow you to apply that firmware, whereas in the past, most of the time, only Windows had that capability. I'm going to shut this down because it's a virtual machine, so it's almost irrelevant. You've got the system monitor. Let's have a quick look here. We're using 832 megs of RAM. Don't forget this is a virtual machine, so that isn't actually that bad. It's sensibly created a 1.8 gig swap partition, even though I've given this 8 gig of RAM. In fact, if I go to my system, yeah, it says 7.8 gig. In this day and age, you're not going to want to put too much swap there, but it's useful to have a little bit. What else is on here? Let's have a look. Power statistics. So if you're on a laptop, this can be useful because it'll list all the details of your battery. Anything else? Universal access, so Magnus, onboard keyboard, and a screen reader. So without further ado, let's go to the control center. And I'll maximize this window, and this is where all your preferences really are. So if you don't like the login window, the plain green, or in fact there's a name for the green that they use, and I believe it's called something along the lines of something cucumber, Chelsea cucumber. But if you want to pick another background, or your own background, indeed, you can do that. You can pick the background color, the GTK theme that you're using, the icon theme, etc., etc. You can set up your printers. So I have a Canon MG6000. It's already picked that up. It's a network printer. Most of the time, you're not going to have any issues with printers. There'll be the odd case, but most of the time, it's great. Your welcome screen, additional drivers, Bluetooth adapters, a Bluetooth manager, a disks application. I'm only obviously running this in a virtual machine, so I can see the different partitions it's set up. Keyboard shortcuts, power management, sound, and a time and date manager. You also have down here a Firewall configuration, which is based on UFW, the uncomplicated firewall. This is known as GUFW. It comes switched off by default, but you can turn it on as simply as that. And there you go. The firewall is now on. Don't get too worried about the firewall not being on by default. Personally, I'd prefer that it was. I'm sure the developers keep it switched off, though, because any services that you set up are not going to work until after you've configured the firewall. So, whilst firewalls are useful, they can break your system if you don't know what you're doing. The main menu, the appearance tool. Let's have a quick look here. So you've got a number of different themes that are installed by default. Let me just minimize this. So, and open up perhaps a window so you can see how these work. If you click on customize, you'll see you've got a whole range of things that you can change this to look like. So I could go for ambient dark. If I look at the window border, I'll change that to ambient dark as well. Icons. What icons do I want to put in there? Maybe I don't want green icons. Maybe I want those. I don't know why you would, I'm not quite sure. Or I might want the standard orange Ubuntu icons. We'll just leave it as that for the time being. So you've got a number of standard themes already installed, and you can play with these. You can, of course, download other themes. You can get it looking however you want. I prefer the dark themes. I just think it looks so much better. What you also have here is a tweak tool. And for the time being, it's pretty much hiding from me. So let me just type tweak. There we are, Mate tweak. And I will open that up. So with the Mate tweak tool, it's up to you whether or not you want to show desktop icons. At the moment, it's just showing home, but if I wanted it to show the computer as well and the trash, there you go, you can have that on your desktop. Mounted volumes is already ticked there, so perhaps I'd want to untick that. There's also a place to sort out your window configuration. So enable animations or don't enable animations. It depends on the power of your graphics card. So you can tweak the system to match your hardware. Do you want to enable window snapping or do not auto maximize, etc., etc.? Where do you want to control the window placement? These little buttons here. They're on the right-hand side by default. But maybe I don't want them on the right-hand side. Maybe I want them on the left-hand side. Simple as that. And you can actually change the whole look and feel of the Mate desktop. It's set up in a way that makes it look quite similar to the old GNOME 2, to be honest. And they call this layout familiar. But if I wanted, for instance, it to look like Cupertino. Let it just settle and we'll see what that brings up. That brings up this dock at the bottom. Okay. And, oops. Oh, it changes the menu completely. So, if you like that, all good. Or maybe I want to go with Mutiny. Let's see what Mutiny brings up. Give it a couple of seconds just to sort itself out. That's very much looking like almost a Unity desktop. We can then go to a netbook. Let's see what that's like. This is all about maximizing your screen space. What about Pantheon? Right, so a slightly different look and feel again with the plank menu at the bottom. Let me open this up again, the control center. Go on to Mate tweak tool again. What else have we got? Redmond. Let's see what Redmond looks like. Right, so now we have the panel at the bottom and looking very Windows-like with a different menu system. Okay. And last but not least, we have traditional. And let's see what this does. And what this brings up here is your two panel layout where you have one on the bottom and one on the top. And your menu, your top menu is split into 3 different sections. So very similar to how the old GNOME 2 system was set up. Just for the time being, I'm going to go back to familiar. which I personally think is quite a nice mix. It just feels very, very comfortable to me. So overall, it's a solid desktop and a good basis for actually creating a system to suit yourself. I'm going to go to the software boutique last and not least just to see what's there on a one-click install basis. So it's stocking the boutique to start off with, and as it says there's an abundance of software for you to try. You can search for software, of course, and you can set your preferences. Let me go to the preferences. Show software sources. So it's got the standard Ubuntu repositories, and it's added the Brave repository as well. Okay, well, that's good. What about if we want to view accessories? It's just a one-click install. If we want to view educational software, exactly the same. Games. Interesting to see there that Play on Linux, which is a front end to Wine, and Steam are all just a quick click away. And suddenly they're installed. Graphical applications, Blender, if you're into that, or GIMP if you want to install that. Internet applications, so a whole range of things here. Not only your browsers, but the likes of FileZilla, which I use all the time. Office applications, it's got LibreOffice already installed, but if you want to do some genealogy, well, Gramps is there for you to look at. What else? Developer tools, I presume. Sound and video tools by the bucket load, including Kdenlive. System tools, including VirtualBox there. Accessibility features, server tools. So you want to run your own Minecraft server, there you go. OpenSSH, just one click away. And there is an additional software stall if you want to install that as well, along with the Synaptic Package Manager, which is what I personally use these days. And then miscellaneous fixes to fix broken packages or update the package lists. So that's Ubuntu Mate. I think it is the natural successor to the original Ubuntu from 2004. I know it's an official flavour, but I just think it's so much more comfortable to use than GNOME. That's a personal preference, of course. Don't forget, though, that whatever flavour of Ubuntu you do install, you can always install alternative desktops as well. Let's go and have a chat. So that's Ubuntu Mate 2004 LTS. From what I can see, it's another high-quality release. We've almost started to compare other distros out there to what Ubuntu is like. It's become so synonymous with Linux. Even people who've never heard of Linux have often heard of Ubuntu, in my experience. And there was recently a little bit of a debate that was taken as controversial where Alan Pope, one of the Ubuntu developers, was asked the question, how do people cut through the massive choice of distros that they have when they're coming to Linux? And Alan says, well, we should just ignore all the other distros and we should tell people to install Ubuntu. A lot of people were shocked, including myself initially, a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction. But thinking about it, it's not a bad idea, I didn't start with Ubuntu, but Ubuntu was what kept me with Linux. And then I moved on once I'd learnt Linux. Not that Linux is just for new starters. Ubuntu is just for new starters. Ubuntu is suitable for everyone. You may experiment with other distros, but Ubuntu is solid, dependable, and reliable. That has been my experience. This is a cracking distro, and anybody who uses Linux and dismisses this out of hand is just plain wrong. It's a great distro, and I'm going to be upgrading my version of 1910 later on today. So that's it for now, guys. I will be back with a video tomorrow. Don't forget to join me on Library, and don't forget to come and join us on my OldTechBloke Facebook group, and I'll see you tomorrow.